Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Right now, get a free select tool when you buy the Craftsman V20 2-pack battery kit. Whether it's the backyard, the bathroom, or beyond, Craftsman has the tools to help you power through and get the project done right. Because DIYing is unpredictable, but your tools shouldn't be. Shop Craftsman at Lowe's today. Valid through 6/18 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends as we've got John Bollman aboard. He does great work over at RotoWire, the show/podcast Baseball with Bowman. We're going to be chatting with him about what we've seen this far this season, how these fades have just been so tremendous in baseball, and then breaking down a few games for Friday in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we do touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, whatever you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM. Name does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is brought to you by Edge Boost. Over at Edge Boost, they make sure that bettors are able to access their funds whenever they need to. It's a bank account set up so that way all of your gambling transactions are approved. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, utilize that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G, that gets you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit of up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Thursday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Rockies are the fastest team to 42 losses since 1895. 2-0 they lose to the Philadelphia Phillies, and all but 5 of these 42 losses for the Colorado Rockies by multiple runs. For Ranger Suarez, very rock solid in this one, 6 2/3 innings scoreless. Ryan Kirkering it out of the bullpen scoreless, and then Matt Strahm, Jordan Romano, they're both able to end a scoreless inning. By the way, the Rockies have actually been quite good to the under this far this season because of their lack of offense. 21 overs, 28 unders, and a push. But for the Colorado, Germán Marquez was actually fine in this one. 2 runs, one of which was earned. Give it up in 7 innings. Jake Burr, Tyler Kinley, they both ended a scoreless inning, but absolutely nothing doing at the plate for them, and absolutely nothing doing at the plate for the Walker Texas Rangers. How about 15 overs, 35 unders, and a push for them as they lose 1-0 for the New York Yankees. As for the Yankees, you had 1 run in this one. Home run number 1 by Jorber Vivas. Hopefully I said that correct. He goes deep off Nathan Eovaldi. I mean, talk about a tough luck loss. Gives up that home run in 6 innings. Hobie Milner, Sharon Armstrong from there. They both lend a scoreless inning, but just nothing doing for the Rangers. As it was 6 scoreless innings for Carlos Rodon, for Mark Leiter Jr., Devin Williams, Luke Weaver. They all lend a scoreless inning to be able to get that one to the window. For the Blue Jays, they get to the window. They take down the San Diego Padres by a count of 7-6. As for the Pods, Stephen Kolek did not have it in this one. 4 runs, 3 of which were earned in 6 innings. Yuki Matsui, Sean Reynolds, Jason Adam all lend a scoreless inning, and then you had Robert Suarez give up 2 runs, 1 of which was earned in extra innings. And Jeremiah Estrada, he gives up 2 runs, 1 of which was earned of his own. And for the San Diego Padres, Gavin Sheets was able to come up big in this one. 5 RBI, 2 home run. His 7th and 8th home runs of the campaign goes deep off of Bowden Francis, who was not long for this game. Gives up 2 runs over the course of 4 innings, and then it became a lot of bullpen bandits from there. Yuriel Rodriguez farts out the bullpen scoreless. Mason Fluharty, a scoreless inning. Chad Green, pair of outs out the bullpen scoreless. Yimi Garcia, scoreless inning. Jeff Hoffman, he gives up one of those home runs. 2 runs in total over the course of an inning. Brandon Little, he gives up 2 runs, all of which were unearned in 1 2/3 innings before you were able to get an out of the bullpen from Braden Fisher to be able to get that one done. And for the Angels, they get it done. They have 2 straight sweeps under their belt as that's 7 straight wins. 10-5, they take down the Sacramento A's. For the Athletics, Luis Severino, a pretty solid start. 2 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings, and then the bullpen just completely implodes as you had 3 runs given up in a third of an inning by Carlos Duran. You had a pair of outs out of the bullpen from Hogan Harris scoreless, and Mitch Pence for outs out of the bullpen scoreless, but Grant Ullman allows a pair of home runs. He got 2 outs and he gave up 5 runs. Going deep for the Angels, Taylor Ward, his 14th home run of the season. Logan O'Hoppe, his 14th home run of the season. Then for Tyler Anderson, not the start he was looking for. 5 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings, including a home run to Bryant Rooker. 11th home run of the campaign, but Hunter Strickland. Far outside the bullpen scoreless, you had Reed Detmers, Ryan Zephyrian, and Connor Brogdon all in a scoreless inning. So they do find a way to be able to persevere in that one. Being able to persevere, how about the Cleveland Guardians and the fact that they do get the job done against the Detroit Tigers? For the Tigers, they just were not able to get anything generated off of the starter and Tanner Bybee. 7 scoreless innings from there. Cade Smith, he's able to hold down for a scoreless inning, and you did have a home run out of an unlikely source. Anel Martinez, second home run of the campaign. Then it comes off of Captain Jack Flaherty. Flaherty, 6 2/3 innings, gives up 3 runs, all of which were earned from there. Sean Gunther, he's able to come in and hold down the fort in the 8th and 9th innings. So solid under there and solid money line of the Cleveland Guardians. Now, I do have to do this with regards to things being a little bit earlier because we're recording this at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. I have the show cashing out on this Thursday, so doing a little bit of everything. And as of right now, we've got a rain delay in the 6th inning between the Brewers and the Pirates. That was currently 5-3 as Christian Yelich was able to have 2 home runs in this one, by the way. For the Brewers, that is home runs number 8 and 9 of the campaign, and Joey Ortiz, he went deep for a second home run of the season. Aaron Savali got a start, giving up 2 runs over the course of 4 innings. From there, you've had Rob Zanofsky be able to give you power outside the bullpen scoreless, and Carlos Rodriguez trying to hold it down. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, it was the season debut for Mike Burrows, who gave up 4 runs in 5 innings, including a pair of bombs. And then Isaac Madsen, he gave up a solo run in his inning of work. So we shall see if that game does indeed resume or not. As of right now, it's the Washington Nationals absolutely taking it to the Atlanta Braves as A.J. Smith-Schwaber. Not what he was looking for in this one. He goes 3 innings, he gives up 7 runs, all of which were earned. Aaron Bummer inherited some of those runners, and he had 1 1/3 inning scoreless. Anya de los Santos, he was able to go for 5 outs out the bullpen scoreless. And for the Atlanta Braves, pair of home runs in this one. Matt Olson off of Trevor Williams' 11th home run of the season. Marcell Ozuna, 9th home run of the season, also off of Williams, as both of those were solo shots for Williams. He gives up 5 runs in 3 2/3 innings, and then from there, Brad Lord, far outside the bullpen scoreless. Henry, Jose Ferrer, both come in and don't give up any earned runs. Jose Ferrer, an unearned run, and for the Washington Nationals, currently up as I do this by kind of 7-6. So we'll see how that one matriculates. And as of right now, you've got yourself what looks to be most likely a high-scoring affair out there in Houston, as the Seattle Mariners were able to get 2 runs up in the first 2 innings against the Houston Astros. From there, we have seen things settle down as recent Lance McCullers Jr. has been really rough for the team, and George Kirby, he's in his first start of the season, loaded up the bases in the 3rd inning with no outs. So we shall see how that one goes, as the Seattle Mariners have actually been a surprising over team thus far this season. Entering into Thursday, 26 overs, 20 unders, and 2 pushes. And if you're looking trend-wise at what we're getting in Major League Baseball, this is with the few games still pending for Thursday, because I did have to record this one a little bit earlier. Favorites just not doing well. 48 and 43 on the money line over the last 7 days for 52.7%, 54 unders, 34 overs, 61.4% hit rate to the under. Meanwhile, if you're looking at the entirety of the season, unders are hitting at a little bit north of 53%, 377 unders to 333 overs. Meanwhile, the favorites, they're hitting on the money line at 58.8%, 434 and 304. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we all got trend-wise in Major League Baseball. Coming up next, how about if we do chat with our good friend John Bollman right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got John Bollman, who does such a tremendous job taking a look at this great game of baseball. I know he's out there doing an incredible job taking a look at the college front, as well as we've got a lot of interest in college baseball, but he also does an amazing job with regards to pro work as well. You've seen him on places like RotoWire, and I know he's helped out our good buddy Johnny Venezia quite a bit over the last few years as well. You're able to find his work with Baseball with Bollman as well, and you're able to follow him on Twitter / at John Bollman. Last name is spelled Bollman, number 11 altogether. And John, great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. As always happy to talk some baseball.
Oh, absolutely. And John, it has been such an incredible start to the season in baseball. We're pretty much at the 2-month marker, and just how you've been able to gauge this sport, because I think the biggest takeaway for me is that the best bets of the season have been the teams that you've wanted to bet against, as we've got some very awful baseball teams this season.
Yeah, definitely. I just saw a notification about it. The Rockies are the worst team like ever in history through the first 50 games of the season in the modern baseball era. Fading a team like the Rockies has been extremely successful all season long. Seems like some of the top teams, there hasn't really been that one standout team that is like, okay, that team's unbeatable. There are a lot of good teams right now, but all those teams have had their stretches. Padres got off to a really good start. They're in a rut right now. The Dodgers got off to a very good start as well, and they're slowing down. They were slowing down a bit at home. So it doesn't seem like there's really that one team that's separating themselves right now. The Tigers are also playing really well, but it'll be interesting to see, which of these teams can keep it up.
Yep, it certainly is going to be. And just in terms of the balance of power, American League versus National League game, I've been really intrigued by that as well, because you mentioned there's really been no one team that's been able to separate itself. But I do think that what has been a big separator is that when it comes to the American League, the Tigers, the Yankees have been relatively rock solid, but all of these top teams, it does feel like, are out there in the National League other than those two.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it feels like that's what it's been like the past couple of years as well. I remember last year going into the playoffs, couple of teams left. I didn't think that the Yankees were one of the top two teams in the MLB. I thought the Padres would have beaten the Yankees, and I thought the Mets would have beaten the Yankees if they made it to the World Series too. So I know some Yankees fans won't be happy I said that, but it feels like the NL has been the powerhouse for a little bit now.
Oh, certainly. And hey, you know what? There's plenty of New York Yankees fans out there, and I'm sure that they will gladly take their titles. But you know what? I'm right there with you. As joining me on the show, we do have John Bollman, who does great work with Baseball with Bowman, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And what else I think is going to be really intriguing is that NL West, because you mentioned it. Colorado Rockies are pretty much a wash in generals at this point to all those other teams, but it's one of the most stacked divisions I've ever seen, with the way that the Giants have been able to play this year, Diamondbacks, Padres, Dodgers. I take a look at all four of these teams, and I think all four have a very good chance to be able to make this National League playoff.
Yeah, 100%. Those are some of the best teams in the league. I think that's what it's going to be like all season long. I think we're going to see them battle it out. It's a little bit of a shame that, once we get to the postseason, we likely won't see those teams face off in those 3-5 game matchup, or in a 7-game matchup, I should say. We likely only see those earlier, shorter matchups. But at the same time, I think a lot of these teams are going to be playing well down the stretch, and I don't necessarily see that with the American League.
Yep, no question about it. And I do think that that's going to be a fun division to be able to take a look at in general. And if you're taking a look at the games for Friday, we've got some very intriguing ones. And you mentioned it with the LA Dodgers, they've been a little bit hit or miss this season, have been slowing down. And right now they are very slight favorites against the New York Mets, with it being Griffin Canning against Clayton Kershaw. And maybe I'm just being too harsh on Kershaw, but didn't love what I saw in start number one. This Dodgers bullpen has been a little bit shaky, and I feel like the wrong team is favored with the Dodgers being the favorite.
Yeah, I agree with you. The way that the Mets have been playing at home, they're playing around 500 on the road, and it's showing, but at home, they're dominant. And yeah, Clayton Kershaw came off the IL. You would think, he's done that so many times that he would have, some good experience and would be able to come off the IL and pitch well. But last outing, he did not look good at all. He's going up against a Mets team that's really good against lefties. So I agree with you there. I would go Mets as well.
Yep, I absolutely love what I've been seeing moving forward here out of Griffin Canning as well. Those Mets pitchers have been able to mix and match, and I think that they're such an interesting team moving forward as well, because right now their pitching, I would say, is overachieved a little bit this season. But even if you think that the Mets might see a little bit of regression with these guys like Clay Holmes, the guy that's going to be going here on Friday, and Griffin Canning, the fact that they've got an owner that's willing to spend, I think makes them just all the more fascinating, because reinforcements, you have to believe, are going to be on the way.
Yeah, totally. I think they'll be very active at the deadline. They're obviously not afraid to spend, but I agree with you. I do think that starting rotation has overperformed a bit, and they will regress to their mean a bit, but that bullpen is always iffy for me, and I guess for the Mets, but I think they could add a few pieces to that bullpen and make that a strength. We already know their lineup is very good. We already know they have good starting pitching, so I think they'll definitely be able to compete for a World Series, even against the juggernaut Dodgers.
Yep, and if Juan Soto is able to figure things out a little bit more as well, because they're paying him quite a bit of money, to say the least. that'd be all the more helpful as John Bollman, who does such great work covering this great game of baseball, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And then this game I find to be so intriguing as well. You've got the LA Angels, who all of a sudden have gotten white hot. They were able to sweep the LA Dodgers. As we are doing this right now, it looks like they're going to be able to get the job done in terms of the Thursday game to be able to sweep the Athletics as well. Right now, they do find themselves as mid-sized favorites against the Miami Marlins, right in the neighborhood, about minus 145. And I want to get your thoughts here because with Sandy Alcantara, this guy's been absolutely terrible. And one of the biggest things I do in baseball is I fade these guys coming off of major surgery in season number 1. And I'm going to be very much looking to do so with Alcantara on Friday.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you there. The Angels have, they've figured it out right now. They're playing unbelievable. It seems like the young talent on this team can definitely get going. And with Ron Washington coaching that team, I'm not terribly surprised that this is happening right now. I don't necessarily think they'll, be a team that finishes over 500, but Yusei Kikuchi has been pitching well so far this season. Like you said, Sandy Alcantara is still working his way back from major surgery, and the Marlins, they're not great this season. Angels are red hot. I like the Angels at home.
Yep, I'm right there with you. A minus 145 number, in my opinion, is honestly pretty cheap with regards to how that's been able to work itself out as well. And then something else I think is so intriguing, the Pittsburgh Pirates, and we don't know how their result went for the Milwaukee Brewers on Thursday, but for the Pittsburgh Pirates, 4 runs or fewer in 26 straight games. Paul Skeens versus Freddie Peralta, total of 7. I typically hate taking 7s under. I need to take a 6.5 or less, a 7 or higher to the over. But that said, how do you take a look at this game? Because with a 7, typically it's not one that I'm willing to take it under on. This one I will be willing to.
Yeah, I would definitely lean under there. I think the first 5 under would be a little too low. The Brewers, I didn't realize how bad of a start Christian Yelich has gotten off to. It's obviously, I didn't notice it. That's obviously a big factor for the Brewers, but he's been terrible so far this season, and they're not going to go very far with him not hitting. Like you said, Paul Skeens, Freddie Peralta, I don't think there'll be many runs in that game. The bullpens just really worry me.
Yep, I do agree with you. The bullpens are very rough, but what I think is so intriguing is with that Pittsburgh Pirates team, the lack of run scoring that they have been able to have, because for the Pirates, it's not like we thought that their offense was going to be great or anything like that, but I just still can't get over the fact that they have been so inept for so long.
Yeah, it just seems like they don't add any help. All their top prospects in the organization are pitchers, and they don't necessarily have that hitting help coming up. And, they're not going to sign anybody, and they haven't been signing anybody. So it's kind of just like a stale lineup in a sense. They need that, that big RBI guy, that really good top of the line hitter in the middle of the lineup, and they're just not doing it.
Nope, they are not doing so at all. And what else I think is going to be really fun for what we've got on this Friday, as well as what we've got out there in Houston, with it being the Astros against the Seattle Mariners, with it being Emerson Hancock, Ryan Gusto, total of 8.5. How do you evaluate a game like this where with Seattle, I didn't have high expectations for the offense? That I feel like has been one of the biggest surprises in all baseball thus far this season. And for the Astros, I thought that we were going to get a little bit more out of them. It's been a little bit mix and match for them, and it feels like they've been able to work their way back a little bit, but this really does feel like it's the Seattle Mariners division to lose at this point.
Yeah, like you said, I did not see this hitting, coming from this team, especially with Victor Robles getting hurt early in the season. But if that team is hitting, they've got one of the best staffs in Major League Baseball. They're playing very well. They've pitched very well for a long time now. They just need to be able to hit. So if they're hitting, they're dangerous. And it seems like the Astros are starting to hit more without Yordan Alvarez in that lineup, which is, he's gotten off to a tough start, but at the same time, you still don't expect that when you lose one of your best hitters. But I would go Mariners on that one. That's just definitely a tougher one for me because of the question marks of the starting pitching on both sides.
Yep, there certainly is quite a bit of starting pitching woes on both sides. And with Ryan Gusto and Emerson Hancock, not necessarily the world's greatest swing and miss guys as well. So balls should be in play quite a bit. And I do think that what we've got ourselves in for this Friday is a very, very intriguing sort of slate of baseball. Is there anything else that's really standing out to you in terms of games that maybe you're not even necessarily betting, but you're just wanting to gauge what you're going to be able to get, and you just really like the matchup in general?
I would look at the Tigers as well against the Guardians. They've had some reverse line movement today, which is interesting. The Guardians essentially played 2 games yesterday, but these are the top, I guess other with the Royals as well, 2 of the best, and I guess the Twins right now. This AL Central is actually playing really well right now, but 2 of the best teams in that division going up against each other. The Tigers have won 15 of their last 20. Jackson Jobe has been great so far this season, and the Guardians are going with spot starter and Slade Kachoni, who hasn't totally figured it out in his career yet. So I would definitely look at the Tigers as well.
Yeah, with Slade Kachoni, it's been a little bit suspect for him, to say the least. And I do want to get your thoughts here as well, because you do bring up the Cleveland Guardians. What have you made out of sort of the reversals with some of these bullpens this season? Because we know that with the Guardians last season, they were number one in terms of bullpen ERA. The Brewers were a top three team as well. Both of these teams have slid down the toilet bowl. And we were talking about our surprise with the Mets. They've all of a sudden become a rock-solid bullpen, and it feels like we've seen a big reversal on some of these bullpens since the Tigers, who have been really solid since the beginning of last year.
I feel like there's just so much volatility in bullpens. I mean, you can have the same guys come back one year and, have a 2-something, and the next year have a 5-something. So I think there's just a lot of volatility in bullpens, and a lot of teams usually wait to see which guys are having good years so they can add them at the deadline. But just a couple key pitchers missing from both bullpens, and not the best starts by a lot of other guys. But I think they'll be able to get back on track.
Yep, right there with you. And we're always on track when we've got you aboard, John. You do such an amazing job gauging this great game that we all know love of baseball. Let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you, and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, so it's at John Bollman 11 on X, and then Baseball with Bollman on Instagram. And I post most of my stuff on X, but there should be content on both accounts there.
Absolutely. John does an incredible job taking a look at this great game of baseball that we all know and love. And every single time he joins me, learn such great insights. So a big thanks to John for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VC Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis out of a game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Great to be joined by John Bollman, who does great work over at RotoWire. I know that he's been helping out our good buddy Johnny Venezia with the Breaking Bet podcast. He does Baseball with Bollman, and every single time he joins me, he lends such great insight. So big thanks to John for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81. We are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So let's get things started with 9:51, 9:52 on the card. The Pittsburgh Pirates walk the plank as they're going to be hosting the Milwaukee Brewers. Freddie Peralta's on the bump for the Crew, and Paul Skeens goes for the Buccos. 7 is the total. Unders -115. The overs -105 for the Pirates. They're between -116 to -125 favorites. They're between +102 to +109 is that number on the Brewers. And I'm going to be in on the under. I saw my total at a 6.6. Pirates entering into the day on Thursday. 26 straight games with 4 runs or fewer. A new MLB record for the live ball era. That is not great to say the least. And you're just getting nothing out of so many of these guys right now in this lineup, as you've had Oneil Cruz do a relatively okay job of being able to give you 8 home runs this far this season, but you just look down the line at so many of these guys that they aren't able to get on base, they aren't able to supply a lot of power. You've had Brian Reynolds actually be able to give you 6 home runs this far this season, but he's hitting right around the middle of the line of 200. Tommy Pham, Mike Roski, Andy Rodriguez, Henry Davis, Alexander Canario, Jared Trollo, all being at 207 or lower, all not giving you any sort of on-base percentage, all not hitting for any power. So that's not great. As Canario for left has been able to hit for a relatively okay average. Joey Bart about a 375 on base, but then you take a look at the Milwaukee Brewers, and you're getting quite a bit more out of this lineup, as Rhys Hoskins is way down with his power numbers, but he has been able to do a nice job of being able to give you some nice batting average. He's been able to give you darn near 400 on base. You've got Jackson Chourio along with Christian Yelich, 7 home runs apiece. Now for Yelich, he's hitting below the Mendoza line of a 200, but you've also been able to get some good production out of William Contreras, about a 375 on base. Power's down, but he's been able to move the line. Bryce Terang has been able to give you about a 360 on base, 13 stolen bases towards the top of the big leagues as well. Now you do have the untrustworthy guys in the infield, Isaac, Michael Collins, Caleb Duran, guys like this, Vinny Capra. They just have not been able to hit for any average, and for the Brewers, this has been a bottom 10 team in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Your Piumps, Elvis Figueroa have not been great. Jared Koenig has been a little bit shaky this year, but Abner Uribe has actually been very rock solid, so been liking what I've been seeing out of him. Trevor McGill has been able to close out quite a few games, and then on the flip side, you've got a Pirates team that's starting to be a little bit better with the bullpen, but David Bednar has been rough over the last 2 seasons. Dennis Santana and Jay Shogurt have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, so good on them. You've been able to get a few okay innings out of Ryan Baruchi, but when you do get into some of these guys like Caleb Ferguson and company, it's been less than savory. So this is a circumstance where with the Brewers, I did set them at a plus 114, so we're going to be in a little bit of wait and see mode. If we could get down to like a minus 114 or so with the Pirates, which I do think that we could get with the timeline, we'll be looking at the Pirates and on this total under, semi-total at 6.6, 953, 954 on the betting board. The Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati. They play also the Chicago Cubs. Matthew Boyd is on the bump for the Cubs. Hunter Green is on the bump for Cincinnati, and 8.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110 with the Cubs. They're in between minus 109 to a minus 115 favorite. They're between even money to plus 102 to a minus 108. That is your number on Cincinnati. And for the Reds, I did set them at a minus 139. I do like them on the money line. Now for Hunter Green, this is going to be his first start in about 2 or so weeks, so a little bit of transition there. But that said, you've got yourself a guy that has been able to do a nice job of being able to get 12 plus strikeouts per 9 innings, 236 ERA, has given up the deep ball a little bit, 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. And this is a Cubs lineup that is really number one out there in the National League. They've done a nice job being able to bring in guy that I like in Kyle Tucker has been able to give you 11 plus homers. He's been able to spy north of a 360 on base. You've been able to get a lot of production out of some of these guys that just move the line in general. Nico Horner has been able to hit for north of a 280. Dansby Swanson all of a sudden has been able to up his average as well. And for Swanson, this man has now been able to give you 10 plus homers thus far this season. C.A. Suzuki, I see you being able to get 10 plus homers. And then Pete Crow Armstrong, 12 plus bombs himself. And on the flip side, you do have a Cincinnati Reds team that's been a little bit hit or miss in terms of this lineup, but you've been able to get good production out of Gavin Lux, who's now been able to spy about a 375 on base. Not a lot of power. That's why you've got Ellie De La Cruz and his 8 home runs, about a 320 on base. You've had Matt McClain be able to spy a little bit of pop, but he's right now hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Jameer Candelario has been miserable when he's been out there on the field. He's been hitting a $113. You got quite a few guys in general that have been very suspect to say the least, but TJ Friedel has been able to give you about a 360 on base, and this is a Reds bullpen that does rank at the top 8 in the big leagues in terms of ERA. Now, I just have no faith whatsoever in Emilio Pagan, but that said, you've got quite a few long guys for the team. Graham Ashcraft, who's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You've had the likes of Brent Suter, Taylor Rogers, Tony Santillan, all being able to supply a sub-2 ERA. And for the Chicago Cubs, Drew Pomeranz, Daniel Palencia have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, but you do have some shakiness with regards to Porter Hodge. Ryan Presley has been really bad in this bullpen as well, so I do have a little bit of a lack of faith there. And for Matthew Boyd, he's actually been quite rock solid this far this season with a 298 ERA, but he is giving up right around about 3 plus walks per 9 innings. A fielding independent is more of a 398, and I do think that for the Reds, they do a solid job. I'll be able to get to them in this ordeal. I did set my total at an 8.4, so on top of that Reds money line, I'm going to be taking a look at the under. 955, 956 on the betting board. It is the Washington Nationals, and they play OC San Francisco Giants, as Landon Roop is on the bump for the Giants, and it is going to be one Mackenzie Gore who gets the start for Washington. And right now with Washington, you're finding them in a pick'em game, minus 108, both sides here. Total on this game, it is 8. It is an over of minus 105, and the under is minus 115, and set the Giants at a very slim minus 111 favorite. I'm going to be willing to roll with the Giants up to a minus 110 on the money line. For Mackenzie Gore, I've really liked what I've seen out of him thus far this season, and I think among all pitchers out there in the big leagues, he's one of the ones that is most, shall we say, rewarding of positivity, as right now his ERA is hovering right around about a 367, but that fielding dependent is more around a 295. He's been getting 13.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, albeit he's given up about 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, but that swing and miss stuff has been very rock solid for him, and he's been able to do a relatively good job of being able to hold down the fort recently. Meanwhile, on the flip side, you got a guy in Landon Roop who has been able to do a really good job of being able to keep the ball in the yard since he came up to the big league level. The walks are a little bit concerned about 3 walks per 9 innings, but he's been able to post up 4.11 ERA, 377 fielding dependent with right around about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings himself. And you do have a Giants bullpen that has so many guys that have been good for this team. Randy Rodriguez has given you a sub-3 ERA. Eric Miller, Tyler Rogers, both of these guys have been able to shell out there a sub 275 ERA as well. All these guys just mixing and matching. They've been able to do a nice job being number one in the big leagues in terms of that bullpen ERA. And for the San Francisco Giants, lineup is relatively solid with Jungle Lee being a bit north of a 275 for the team. He's been able to supply some good power. You've been able to get quite a bit of power out of Matt Chapman as well. 8+ home runs. Not necessarily for a lot of average, but has been able to give you north of a 350 on base. You've had Eloy Ramos be able to supply 9+ home runs for the team as well. And Willie Adames just really hasn't gotten going for this bunch. He's been hitting below a 240, not necessarily supplying a lot of power, but on the flip side, you do have a Washington Nationals team that they're a little bit top heavy as well. Need to be getting more out of Dylan Cruz, coupled with also Josh Bell. Both of these guys hitting below the middle side of 200. I've been really liking what I've been seeing of James Wood. For James Wood, he's been able to give this team north of a 375 on base, 12 home runs for the season. Nathaniel Lowe, along with CJ Abrams, 8 home runs apiece. And for Abrams, he's been able to north of a 300 as well. Keibert Ruiz, he's not necessarily for a lot of power, but he's been able to about 275 as well. And for the Nationals, this is a bullpen that's currently in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of the bullpen ERA. You've been able to find a few guys like a Jackson Rutledge, coupled with Kyle Finnegan, who've been able to give you a sub-3.5 ERA. Cole Henry has not necessarily been too bad as well, but you have a lot of guys out there that you just feel are less than savory, to say the least. These guys like a Zach Brzezinski and company just have not been able to give you good innings whatsoever. Eduardo Salazar has been pretty miserable for this Giants team. I do think that they do just enough to be able to get the job done, so I did set them at a -111. I'm willing to lay up to a -110 with regards to that money line, and did set my total at an 8.2, so an 8 or less, I'm in on the over. 957, 958 on the betting board. The New York Mets playoffs to the LA Dodgers, as you've got Clayton Kershaw on the bump for the Dodgers, and good if Finn Canning is on the bump for the Metropolitans, and the Mets to find themselves as very slight underdogs of anywhere between +104 to a -105. -115 is that number with the LA Dodgers, and it's on this game. It is 8.5 to a 9 on the 9. The under is -120, the over is even on the 8.5. Over is -120, the under is even. Feel like the wrong team is favored here. I feel like the New York Mets should be the favorite, so I'm going to be taking a shot on them on the money line. I just don't trust in Clayton Kershaw. First start of the season, he gives up 5 runs over the course of 4 innings, and yeah, he's just been unable to stay healthy for one. Even when he was out there on the field last season, he was getting only about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. This is just not the same Clayton Kershaw that we all know and love. Meanwhile, for Griffin Canning, he's done a really nice job of just going out there and giving you consistency this year. He's posting up about a 2.45 ERA. Fielding dependent, I fully recognize, is about a full point or so higher, but he's doing a nice job, be able to keep things out in front of him. He's getting 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he's backed up by a whole heck of a lot of better bullpen as well. This is a Mets team that does rank in the top 3 in terms of bullpen ERA. Jose Buto has been a really good long guy for the team, being able to give you sub-3 ERA. Max Chronic has been a little bit hit or miss for them, but Reed Garrett has been rock solid. Edwin Diaz, after a little bit of a shaky start to the season, he's been able to do a tremendous job as well. Flip side, you've got yourself a bunch in the LA Dodgers that has been dealing with a lot of injuries in general. Kirby Yates has not been what they were expecting. He's been supplying north of 4 ERA. Tanner Scott has been pretty solid at the back end of the bullpen, and you're also now dealing with the injury to Blake Tryon, which is hurting them. Some of these longer guys like Ben Kasparov, Jack Dreyer, they've been able to give you a sub-3.35 ERA, but has not been quite the same bullpen this season. And for the LA Dodgers, clearly this is one of the best Death Star lineups out there in all of baseball. Shohei Ohtani with 17 home runs, nearly a 400 on base, and Eddie Baez has been a nice story for the team as well. He and Freddie Freeman, 9 home runs apiece. Freeman give you north of 425 on base. You've had Baez be able to hit about a 270 for this unit, but Max Muncy, Michael Conforto, a combined 6 home runs, and neither guy hitting above a 205. You need to get a little bit more there. Kike Hernandez has been hit or miss as well. Flip side for the Mets, and I know that there's a lot of people that want to talk about Juan Soto and him underachieving, and this is not what the Mets paid for. There's no question about it, but it's not as if he's been a complete disaster, if I'm allowed to say that. He's been still giving the team a 375 on base with 8 home runs. You expect more, but again, it's not like he's been completely struggling. You've got Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, combined 19 home runs. Both of these guys hitting at least a 285, and then quite a few guys that are able to find a way on base, like Luis Torrens at the catcher's spot has been able to give you about a 350 on base. Brandon Nim will not give you a lot of average, but 8 home runs thus far this season, and I do think that with the Mets and having what they've got in Griffin Canning, I think that they get to Clayton Kershaw, and they do find a way to be able to persevere, get the job done. I set my total at an 8.7. So here at the 8.5, I do like the over, and I do like the Mets on the money line, set them at a minus 121. 959, 960 on the betting board. The Slam Diego Padres are going to be on the road facing off against the Atlanta Braves, as Chris Sale is on the bump for the Bravos, and right now it's all to be determined who's going to be on the bump for the San Diego Padres. So this is a game that's presently off the board, and if you're looking through the grapevine as to who the San Diego Padres might be throwing, a lot of places are right now thinking it's going to be Nick Pivetta, and if you do get Pivetta versus Chris Sale, I set the Braves at a minus 133 on the money line. We'll be willing to go up to a minus 132 there, plus 134 or higher. We'll be looking at the Padres, and then a 7.5 or less, I'd be in on the over and 8 or higher to the under. And with that initial FanDuel opener, I'm seeing the Braves at about a minus 142 with a total of 8, with that shaded down to the under. And I'd be willing to take a shot on that 8 under, because I do think that Chris Sale going to be able to give you a very nice start here. I recognize that he's not quite the same pitcher that he was a season ago, but he's still getting north of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's still only allowing 1 home run per 9 innings, not necessarily giving up a lot of walks. And then for Nick Pivetta, this has been a career year for him. He's done a nice job going out there, being able to supply a sub-3 ERA. His strikeouts per 9 rate is hovering right around about 10, and for Pivetta, he's done a nice job being able to cut down on the deep ball as well. When he was over with the Boston Red Sox, always was giving up at least 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. This season, that's down to 0.9 home runs per 9. Pitching out there in San Diego has really been able to do wonders for him, but he has now given up 3+ runs in 3 out of his last 5 starts, so we're starting to see that regress a tad for the Padres. You really don't have that one power bat outside from Fernando Tatis Jr. Tatis Jr. has been able to give you double-figure amount of homers. He's been rock solid, but you've got a lot of other guys that they just find a way to be able to move the line. They're doing a nice job of being able to get on base, as you've been able to have Manny Machado hitting well north of 300 for this team. Jackson Merrill's been able to do the same. You've had Gavin Sheets be able to give you some relatively good at-bats as well. So I do like the way that this team has been able to hit for average. You're not hitting for that same amount of power, but what they've been able to make up for with regards to that lack of power is what the bullpen has been able to provide. Just a lot of guys like Robert Suarez at close, or Yuki Matsui, Jason Adam, who have been able to give this team a sub-275 ERA. Jeremiah Estrada is in the sub-3 ERA category as well. And then this is an Atlanta Braves bullpen that has been solid, not necessarily great. Desbel Hernandez has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA along Dylan Lee for the Braves right now. They're hovering right around about 14th in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You've got a few guys that are a little bit shaky for the team, but overall you've been able to get some good production. Rossi Iglesias has a high ERA, but I do believe he's got some of the best stuff out there in all baseball, and he's going to be able to figure his way out. And then for the Atlanta Braves, what you do have to love about this lineup is the fact that you do have Matt Olson, who's been able to all of a sudden turn it on with regards to his power. He's back up to 10+ home runs this season, and he's been able to supply this team with north of a 345 on base. Marcell Ozuna, he's been getting back to his old ways of a season ago. 8 home runs, nearly a 420 on base. Now you need more out of Ozzy Albies, Michael Harris. Both of these guys being in the neighborhood of about a 225 with not a ton of power. That's a bit of an issue, but John Murphy, 8 home runs in his first 103 at-bats. He's done a nice job being able to give you some good consistency at the plate, and I do think that for the Braves, they do get to a guy in Pivetta who, when he's been away from home, he's been a little bit shaky in terms of giving up the deep ball. If you get an 8 like I'm seeing right now in on the under, and with the Braves, I'd be willing to go up to a minus 132 on that money line. Would need at least plus 134 to take a shot on the Pods. 961, 962 on the betting board. The Arizona Diamondbacks at the road. They're facing off against the St. Louis Cardinals as Zach Gallen looks to fill it up for Arizona, and Miles Michaelis is on the bump for St. Louis. 8.5 is the total. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. Minus 120 to minus 125 is that number on Arizona. Between even money and plus 110 is that number on St. Louis. And for St. Louis, I did set them as a underdog of plus 122, so I'm willing to go up to a minus 122 here with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And for Zach Gallen, it's been a reversal of what we've seen throughout his career. For Gallen, typically he is a whole heck of a lot better when he's at home rather than away from home. This year it's been the exact opposite. Overall, a 5.14 ERA. He's been giving up about 4 walks per 9 innings, 1.6 home runs per 9, and he is coming off of giving up a combined 10 runs over the course of his last 2 starts, so that's been very much less than tremendous. But on the road this season, he's posting up a 3.38 ERA. He's given up 3 home runs at 18 and 2/3 innings, meanwhile 7 bombs and 37 and a third innings with a north of 6 ERA when he's been at home. Meanwhile, for Miles Michaelis, He's been very effective recently, but I just don't see this being long-lasting with Miles Mikolas. He is pitching to a lot of contact right now, 3.77 ERA. Feel like he penned more around about a 3.58 because he does not walk a soul. He's been getting only about 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, 0.4 home runs per 9, and somehow, someway, he's given up just 4 runs over the course of his last 5 starts, but he has done this against the Kansas City Royals, Washington Nationals, and Pittsburgh Pirates over his last 3 starts. Those are 3 of the lesser offenses in all of baseball, and I do think that you're going to be getting some regression here with an Arizona Diamondbacks team that is in the top 2 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game since the beginning of the 2024 campaign, and the fact that Corbin Carroll has been able to give you north of 14 home runs this season has been tremendous for this team, and he's been also supplying that nearly 350 on base. And for Eugenio Suarez, not hitting for a lot of average, but he's been able to supply those 14 home runs. Lourdes Gurriel hitting just a 225 has been absolutely awful, but Geraldo Perdomo's hitting above a 300. Pavin Smith nearly a 400 on base. You've got Ketel Marte, Alec Thomas, both hitting a 270 apiece, and for Marte, he's been able to give this team 7 home runs as well. Flip side, you've got yourself a bunch in the St. Louis Cardinals who have been a little bit more of a station-to-station baseball team. I like what I've been seeing out of Brendan Donovan, who's been able to hit well north of a 375 with regards to that on base, 323 average, not necessarily giving you a ton of pop, as Lars Nootbaar leads the way with 7 home runs as far as the season, but they're getting Ivan Herrera off the injured list, 5 home runs in his first 18 games and 60 at-bats of the season, hitting north of 400, so that's been rock solid. What's not been solid has been Jordan Walker, hitting below the middle sign of 200, Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado. These guys are hitting between about a 240 to a 250, and the St. Louis Cardinals bullpen does look very much revamped. It had a relatively rough start to the season, but Ryan Helsley continues to have some of the best pure stuff that you're going to find in all of baseball. You've had Kyle Leahy be able to supply a sub-2 ERA. Phil Matone has been able to give you an ERA that's hovering right around about a 3 as well. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, this is a bottom 10 team in terms of bullpen ERA. You've got a few guys that have just been very suspect in general in terms of what you've been able to get. You've had the likes of a Jalen Beeks along Shelby Miller be able to supply a sub-3 ERA, but then you get into someone like a Juan Barrio, who's been giving you a well north of a 4 ERA. Ryan Thompson has been all over the place, providing a sub-50 ERA. Kevin Ginkel right around about an 8 or so. So these guys have been very much less than so-so, to say the least. But I do think that for Zach Gallen, he's going to be able to do a nice job at lending a great start here. And I do think that the overall power of the Diamondbacks leads them to victory. I set the Diamondbacks at a minus 122. I like them on the money line, and I'm in on the over. So I might tell it at 8.7. 963, 964 on the betting board. The Blue Jays are on the road facing off against the Tampa Bay Rays, as you've got Drew Rasmussen, who's on the bump for the Rays, and it's old to be determined on the bump for Toronto, so this game is off the board. The Blue Jays have sort of had a bullpen game where it's typically been a mix and match of Jose Urena along with Eric Lauer, so I think that those two guys are going to be most likely piggybacking once again, and if that is the case, I'm going to be willing to set the Rays of up to a minus 150 on the money line, and did semi-total to where a 9 or less. I'm going to be taking a look at the over, a 9.5 or higher to the under. There are some places that sometimes post up an opener. Right now, we're finding the Rays at about a minus 152 on that FanDuel opener with a total of 9 that is shaded up to the over, so I'd be taking a look at the 9 over. And for the Rays, if we get a minus 150 or better, that'll be my buy point there, because with Drew Rasmussen, you've got someone who's been just very steady Eddie and rock solid. With Rasmussen, not gonna give you a whole bunch of strikeouts and a whole bunch of swing and miss stuff or anything like that, but he just really doesn't beat himself. He gives up fewer than 2.5 walks per 9 innings. He keeps the ball in the yard. I really like what he brings to the table, and typically they only have him go about 5 or so innings. He's not going to go super duper deep into games, but 2.93 ERA, and then backed up by a bullpen that has been in the top 10 in terms of bullpen ERA. Eric Gorze, Pete Fairbanks have been very good in terms of bullpen pieces. Mason Montgomery has been a little bit more suspect, but Hunter Biggie and company, these guys have been able to step up to the plate. Flip side, this is a Blue Jays lineup that has been really not supplying a lot of power. They're in the bottom 6 in the big leagues in terms of home run power. Dalton Varsho has been able to give you 6 home runs in fewer than 20 games since coming off the injury list, so that's been very encouraging. You've got Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who does continue to give you north of a 370 on base. The overall home run power has not necessarily been amazing, as he's been stuck on 6 home runs pretty much for the entirety of the season. Bo Bichette, he's been able to about a 290 or so, and for George Springer, 370 on base, that's been pretty solid. But for the Blue Jays as well, this has been a bullpen that has been up, down, all around, and with the game going to 11 innings yesterday, they had to really burn up a lot of pieces. Yariel Rodriguez, who typically gives you some long relief, he's been a guy that's been pretty solid with a 3.20 ERA, and you use him for north of 20 pitches. Jeff Hoffman is up to a 6 ERA. You've had Yimi Garcia to a relatively solid job with about a 3.15 ERA, but now they had to use him along with Chad Green yesterday as well. Chad Green about a 3.40 ERA, so do have my question marks as to what sort of effectiveness this bullpen is going to be able to supply, and you do have to have your question marks with regards to Tampa Bay Rays and their overall firepower, is because you've got Jonathan Hernandez be able to give you 400 on base, and he's been able to supply the team with 6+ home runs, but other than Junior Caminero, who's been able to give the team 8+ home runs this season, you don't necessarily have a ton of power. Yandy Diaz, he's been able to give you 6 bombs, and he's okay at being able to move the line. He's been hitting in that neighborhood about a 255 or so that's been solid for this unit. But Brandon Lau, even though he gives you 8 home runs, just a 281 on base. You've had Jose Cabrera do an okay job of being able to move the line, but Danny Jansen, Ben Rofit at the catcher spot have both been absolutely awful, to say the least. But I do think that the overall pitching of the Toronto Blue Jays is going to be able to pull them through, especially if you get the duo of Jose Urena along with Eric Lauer. Urena especially, he just doesn't give you a lot of firepower. He doesn't necessarily hit for a ton of average, and on the flip side, you do have a guy in Eric Lauer. He was really good with the Milwaukee Brewers a few seasons ago, and in his 12 innings across 4 appearances thus far this season, posting up a 2.25 ERA, swinging his stuff is back to about 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but I don't know if I can necessarily trust this very small sample size in him. So with the Rays, one to lay up to a -150 there, and it would be looking at the 9 over. 965, 966, going to be in conjecture with 981, 982. This is a double dip between the Orioles and the Boston Red Sox. Now, the Lucas Giolito start, which is going to be start number 2, you don't know who he's going up against for the Baltimore Orioles. They're going to be determining that in the AM, but that said, we do know what game 1 is going to be. That is going to be Cade Povich on the bump for Baltimore and Brian Bayo, who's going for the Boston Red Sox. As of right now, you really don't have openers up on this game because this was a little bit thrusted onto the board late on us, but that said, with regards to the Boston Red Sox and Bayo, if you do get him against Cade Povich like it's looking like, I'd be willing to set a -153 on that Red Sox money line, willing to lay up to a -152 there, plus 154 or higher. Looking at the Orioles, 9 or less, looking at the over 9.5 or higher, the under for Cade Povich. Just have not been impressed by him all season long. He's been supplying north of 5 ERA, and if you look throughout the entirety of his career, he's posting up north of a 6 ERA when he's away from home as well, so that becomes all the more concerning for Povich. He's been giving you in the neighborhood about 8.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, about 1.7 bombs per 9 as well. Brian Bayo is just overdue for regression at this point. Mr. Bayo, he's posting up an ERA that is a 4.02, but the fielding independent, that's more around about a 5.47, 5.5 strikeouts, 5.5 walks per 9 innings, giving up a little bit north of a home run per 9 as well. Got absolutely tattooed in his last start against the Atlanta Braves after he had just been walking on sunshine, but you do have a Baltimore Orioles team that has a really, really bad bullpen, and the Red Sox, they've got a relatively decent one. Now for the Red Sox, you're starting to see Liam Hendriks just not be necessarily the guy that he was a few seasons ago. I mean, great story that he's been able to come back, but still, you tell that he's lost a little bit of something, but you've been able to have Brandon Bernardino along with Aroldis Chapman be able to supply a sub-275 ERA, and I do think that Garrett Wildock, after a rough start to the season, he's going to be able to pick things up. Meanwhile, Felix Bautista has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You've also been able to get some relatively good innings as well, someone like a Brian Baker, but you've got the likes of Sir Anthony Dominguez, Gregory Soto, the cast-offs of the Philadelphia Phillies, Perez and company, we're giving you north of a 4.50 ERA. And for the Baltimore Orioles, Gunnar Henderson is starting to pick it up a little bit after a rough start to the season. He's done a nice job being able to hit north of 250 for the team, starting to be able to supply a little bit more power, but for Baltimore, you just are needing guys in general to be able to find a way to be able to step up and be able to give you a little bit more, as Ryan O'Hearn has been able to give you about a 396 on base, and he is supplying 7 home runs this season. Cedric Mullins is up to 10 bombs, and he's been able to give you about a 332 on base, but since a good start to the season, he has really regressed a little bit. Ryan Mountcastle, though he's hitting at 230, a 263 on base with 2 home runs this season. Adley Rutschman, Tyler O'Neill, Heston Kjerstad, all hitting at 220 or lower as well. And for this Orioles bullpen, they have been one of the lesser ones out there in all of baseball to really compound things. And for the Boston Red Sox, I do think that you're going to be able to get some good production out of this lineup, as Alex Bregman, a couple with Weiler Abreu, have been able to give you 11 home runs apiece. Of Rafael Devers, who refuses to pick up the glove, but he's been able to give you 10 bombs. He's given you about a 410 on base. Jaron Duran, he's been a little bit up and down, but he's still give you about a 265 average. Without Tristan Costas in the lineup, honestly, this has been a team that's been able to get a little bit more out of a few more of these ancillary guys as well. well. Rami Garcia has been able to above 300. Robert Refsnyder, whenever they give him at-bats, that's been relatively rock solid as well. And I do think that for the Boston Red Sox, they should be relatively solid favorites in both of these games. Game number 1 against Povich, I did set Brian Bale at a minus 153, so we'll go up to minus 152 there, plus 154 or higher. Looking at the Orioles, and then made a total to wear a 9 or less. Looking at the over 9.5 or higher, the under. And then if you're looking at Giolito versus to be determined, a lot of people are thinking that this is going to be Charlie Morton. And if it's not Charlie Morton, you're going to get some sort of young gun starter. And I'd be setting a total to wear a 9.5 or less. I'd be looking at the over a 10 or higher to the under. Giolito, a 7 ERA, and even when he was out there in the 2023 season, 2024, he was out all season long due to an injury. He was posting up that year a 4.88 ERA in fielding independent, north of 5. And if you get Charlie Morton, he's been about as useful as a poopy flavored lollipop. Just a really rough season in general for him, as he's been giving this team well north of a 6 ERA. The fielding independent is not so great. He's given up a bunch of homers. He's not necessarily keeping guys on base. He's been not getting the strikeout numbers that he typically does. Gives up a whole bunch of walks. So my goodness, it has been a little bit less than tremendous out of him, and then that entire bullpen has been an issue as well. So 9.5 or less, looking at the over 10 or higher, the under am with the Boston Red Sox. In terms of that money line, I set it at a minus 166 if you do get Charlie Morton, so would be willing to lay up to minus 165 with the Red Sox, plus 167 or higher. Looking at the O's, 967, 968 on the betting board. The Detroit Tigers play us to the Cleveland Guardians, as Slade Sassoni is on the bump for the Guardians, and you've got Mr. Jackson Jobe, who goes for Detroit. Detroit is anywhere between a minus 129 to a minus 135 favorite, anywhere between plus 115 to plus 120 is that number on Cleveland. 8.5 is the total. The over is minus 115, the under is minus 105, and I'm going to be willing to lay it with the Detroit Tigers. I set them at a minus 149 for Sassoni. It's been not great for him over the last 2 years in general, because you take a look at what he was able to do last season with the Arizona Diamondbacks. 6.66 ERA, has always been a guy that doesn't necessarily give up a ton of walks, but he's not going to give you that amazing swing and miss stuff as well. He's been giving up quite a bit of hard contact as well, because he always does stay in the zone, so that's a big issue that you got with him. As for Sassoni, last season he posted up a 502 fielding independent, giving up nearly 2 home runs per 9 innings, and in his first start of the season, credit where it is due, 8 strikeouts in his 5 innings, but still gave up those 3 runs. Meanwhile, for Jackson Jobe, he's got a 4.12 ERA, but fielding independent is closer to about a 5. He's been really not getting a ton with regards to his swing and miss stuff. He's down below 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's been also giving up right around about 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, and the 5 walks per 9 innings, a little bit less than tremendous. He's been able to do a good job recently of being able to keep guys on, and he's been giving up 2 runs or fewer in now 3 out of his last 5 starts, 3 runs or fewer in 4 out of his last 5, but do have to wonder how long lasting this is going to be. But he is backed up by a lineup that has been one of the best in all baseball. For Riley Green, he, along with Spencer Torkelson, Kerry Carpenter, have all been able to give this team at least 9 home runs this season, and all these guys are doing a relatively solid job of being reach base. And then you've got Gleyber Torres along with Avi Baez, who both been able to hit above a 280 this season. Trey Sweeney has been relatively solid in terms of moving that line as well. Dylan Lingler, when he's been getting at bats, he's been able to hit for darn near 300 as well. And with the Cleveland Guardians, just don't have a great bottom of the lineup. The top has been fine. Stephen Kwan hitting above 300. He's obviously not going to give you a lot of power, but he's been fine there. Jose Ramirez, he's been able to supply the team with 9 home runs. He's back up to hitting right around about a 300, but Lane Thomas, Bo Naylor, when he's out there, Austin Hedges, Nolan Jones, these guys hitting below the Mendoza line of 200 have been very brutal to say the least. Kyle Manzardo has been able to give you 10 plus home runs, but he's only hitting about a 215, and for the Guardians, last year this was the number 1 bullpen in all baseball, and this year they're in the bottom half of the big leagues. Emmanuel Clase just has not been what he was a season ago. He's been looking a little bit better recently, but man, still about a 450 ERA, so he's still working away to be able to claw his way up. Hunter Gaddis, Cade Smith, these guys have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, but Tim Aaron has not necessarily been himself. You've got Paul Sewald currently on the injured list, and for the Detroit Tigers, dating back to the All-Star break of the 2024 campaign, this is the number 1 team with regards to bullpen ERA. Just so many guys in general. Brendan Hennepy, along with Will Vest, Tommy Gainley, John Brebbia, Brant Herter, who's been utilized a little bit more as a starter, and all these guys have been able to give you a sub-3.3 ERA. I do think that for the Detroit Tigers, they're going to do a nice job. I'll be able to help out their guy here in Jackson Jobe and find a way to be able to get the job done in a higher scoring game. So I might tell it at 8.6. I do like the over, and I do like the Tigers on the money line. 969, 970 on the betting board. The Chicago White Sox play host to the Texas Rangers. Tyler Mahle is on the bump for the Rangers, and John Burke goes for the Chicago White Sox. 8 is the total. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. And with the Rangers, they're between minus 185 to minus 190 favorites, and between plus 158 to a plus 162 is that number on the Chicago White Sox. And if you're looking to lay a run half with the Texas Rangers, you're going to be able to find that at right around about a minus 110, and I would be willing to lay that minus 110. I'm willing to go up to a minus 114 for the Rangers. It has been a lineup that just has not been able to get going in general in that series against the New York Yankees. You saw them very much held down, but I do think that Sean Burke and the Chicago White Sox are going to be able to bring out the best of them. As for Jake Berger, all of a sudden he's been able to give you a little bit more of something. I'm not saying it's amazing, but he was able to hit a home run on Wednesday against the New York Yankees, and now he's been hitting above a 220, which you do like to see that, but likes of a Marcus Semien, Jock Peterson hitting below a 200, Ezekiel Duran in his small sample size has been absolutely awful as well. These guys have really been letting you down. You've got Josh Smith along Josh Young, who both been able to above a 280, and for Corey Seager, when he's been out there, he's been rock solid, but that injury has been hurting this Rangers team. For a Rangers team that they're about league average with regards to bullpen ERA, and you do want to note that with the Rangers, 8-16 on the road this season, so they've got some very dramatic home and road splits, but Robert Garcia, along with Hobie Milner, have been able to give you a sub 3.3 ERA. You've got a guy in Luke Jackson who just has not been able to give you too much in general, and for Sean Armstrong, back up north of a 4.5 ERA, but I do think that they are going to be able to do a nice job of getting to Sean Burke, a guy in Mr. Burke who's been supplying well north of a 4.50 ERA. Swing of his stuff just is not necessarily too tremendous, and he's been giving up quite a few free passes as well. For Mr. Burke, right now, his strikeouts per 9 rate, that's hovering in the neighborhood about a 6.5, and his walks per 9 rate is 5, all while giving up about 1.7 home runs per 9 innings. So I know he has been very rough with that regard, and he's just not backed up any sort of a lineup whatsoever. As you've had Luis Robert along with Andrew Vaughn, both hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. You just need to get a little bit more there. And for the Chicago White Sox team, you don't necessarily have a guy that's able to move the line, get on base, other than London Sosa, who's been in that neighborhood about a 270. So a little bit of cry word to Zoo, but Andrew Benintendi being on the injured list after he was giving the team 5+ home runs to begin the season, having these guys like a Joshua Palacios, Michael A. Taylor and company, they're hitting a 220 or lower, does lead to a relatively rough ordeal. And for Tyler Mahle, I do think that he's going to regress a little bit from the fact that he's currently giving you a sub 225 ERA. He's not necessarily blowing guys away with his swing and miss stuff, as his strikeouts per 9 rate that is hovering in the neighborhood about a 6.5, but he's just done a nice job of being able to induce soft contact in general. 2 home runs allowed in 55 innings across 9 strikes thus far this season. Fewer than 3 walks per 9 innings. Should be able to go out there and dominate this White Sox lineup. So some I tell at 7.6. I'd like the 8 under, and the Rangers up to a minus 113 on that run line. 971, 972 on the betting board. The Kansas City Royals, at the road, they're facing off against the Minnesota Twins as Pablo Lopez goes for the Twins, and you've got Noah Cameron on the bump for the Royals. The Royals are underdogs of any between plus 130 to a plus 140, between minus 154 to a minus 162. That number on Minnesota, 7.5 is the total, over and the under any between minus 105 to a minus 115. And with the Twins, I did make their money line a minus 159, so I'm going to be willing to go on them on some form of capacity. If you're looking to lay run half with Minnesota right now, you're finding that run line price at a plus 135, and I'm going to be willing to go in there. I was willing to take a plus 123 or higher for Noah Cameron, even though he's been rock solid in his first few starts with the Royals. He's only given up 1 run in his first 12 2/3 innings. Fielding independent is north of a 4 from, as he's been getting less than 5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He did give up 3.5 walks per 9, so he's putting men on base. For the Royals, this has been a very good bullpen for them, and that has been one of their best attributes thus far this season. Big reason why they've been able to do what they do is that you've got Lucas Ursach, Carlos Estevez, a really nice 9th and 8th inning duo. Both of these guys be able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Steven Cruz has been able to do a really good job in terms of being able to give you some good innings as well, so I really like the way that these guys have been able to pull through. Heck, you take a look at Daniel Lynch, and he's been utilized a little bit more in a starter spot in the last few days for this bunch, but he's also been able to do a nice job of being able to supply those innings. But for the Minnesota Twins, they have already 16 wins at home this far this season out of their 27, and I do think that they're going to do an okay job. I'll be able to get to Cameron and company with Byron Buxton. Now I'll give you 10 home runs. He's hitting above a 260. You've had Harrison Bader do a really good job of the line, give you about a 360 on base, with he and Ryan Jeffers both right around about a 360 on base. Do need to get a bit more out of Carlos Correa. It's been a rough season out of him, but you've had Trevor Larnach be able to about a 250. He's starting to give you a little bit of power. Some of the guys towards the bottom of the lineup have been starting to step step up as well, and Cody Clemens, he's been a really nice pickup for this team, hitting above a 3-er. And then for the Minnesota Twins, this is a top 5 team with regards to their bullpen ERA, as well as Zanny Kalumas. He had to give up a run this far as the season. Yohan Duran, he's looking like one of the best closers in all of baseball. He, Justin Topa, both give you a sub-2 ERA, and then Cole Sands has been able to give you some good innings. And for the Kansas City Royals, this continues to be a bottom 6 team in the big leagues with regards to run creation. You've been able to have Vinny Pasquantino give you 7+ home runs, but still, you're going to need to get a little bit more of these guys moving forward, as you've been able to have Miguel Garcia hit above a 300 along with Bobby Witt Jr. Witt Jr. just 5 home runs this far this season, so a little bit of a fall off there. But you know what? With him and Miguel Garcia giving you 5 home runs, that's a little bit of power, but still, 32 home runs in 51 games this far this season. That is the lowest we've seen in quite some time for a team that is actually above 500 right now. You've had the likes of Michael Massey. When he's been out there, Kevon Biggio, he's been a little bit in and out of the lineup in general this far this season, hitting below a 225 for the team. Marcana, they're starting to get him back after he was in and out of the lineup to begin the season. That should be able to help out just a skoge, but I do think that for the Minnesota Twins, they do a nice job of being able to knife into the bullpen, get to know Cameron. I did set my total at 8.3, especially with Pablo Lopez and the way that he's been able to dominate. Be able to give you a 240 ERA. He's been supplying the team with north of 9 home runs per 9, and he's giving up less than a home run per 9. I think that he's going to do a nice job guiding this Twins team to victory. I do like the Twins on the run line, and I'm in on this total over as well. 973, 974 on the card. You've got the Houston Astros, and they're going to be playing against the Seattle Mariners. Emerson Hancock is on the bump for Seattle, and you've got Ryan Gusto on the bump for Houston. And Houston, between a -118 to a -122 favorite, or between even money to +106 is that number on Seattle. 8.5 is the total. The over is -115. Under is -105 for Seattle. I do feel like they should be faded in this spot. I did set the Houston Astros at a -122, so I'm going to be willing to roll with them on the money line for Ryan Gusto. It's been a little bit up and down for him because he started out the year in the bullpen. He got elevated into a starter's role, and then he was sent back to the bullpen for a little bit of time, and now here he's once again back as a starter. But for Ryan Gusto, okay swing and miss stuff. I'm not going to call it amazing or anything like that, and he is supplying a 4.65 ERA, but that pairs with a 4.14 fielding dependent. A little bit over 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, a 3.5 walks per 9 innings. That is a little bit concerning on his end, but I mean, it's been a very unique situation with him going from starter to being back in the bullpen to being back to being a starter, and a lot of his numbers have just ballooned up by the fact that he gave up 7 runs in 2 1/3 innings against the Kansas City Royals in his last start on the 12th. Past that, he's actually been able to do a relatively solid job, and for Emerson Hancock, he's had 2 massive blow-up starts this season, which is a big reason why he's got north of his 6 ERA. He's a better pitcher than this, 5.39 fielding dependent. Not going to give you a whole bunch of swing and miss stuff with about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's been giving up darn near 2 home runs per 9 innings, but I do think that he's better than what the raw numbers show through. And for the Seattle Mariners, this is about a league average bullpen, with Andres Munoz being one of the better closers in all baseball, but then having the, shall we say, so-so relievers of a Gabe Spire being able to do an okay job of being able to give you a sub-350 ERA. You do have someone like an Edward Bizardo who's been giving you north of 4 ERA. Really don't have a lot of faith in him, and when it comes to the flip side for the Houston Astros, this is a bullpen that you're able to rely upon in the Bryans. Brian King, Brian Abreu, both of these guys being able to give you a sub-225 ERA. Josh Hader has been in that boat as well. Steven Okert has been able to give you some really good innings along Caleb Ward, so I really like the way that these guys have mixed and match. And for Houston, it's been a case where Jose Altuve has not been himself this season, as right now he's supplying the team with a batting average that's hovering in the neighborhood about a 240 with 4 home runs. That's been rough to see, to say the least, but you've been able to get a little bit more out of Isaac Paredes. He's up to being able to give the team 10 home runs, a 375 on base. Jeremy Pena hitting darn near 306 home runs, which doesn't sound like a ton, but he's been able to do some solid work there. You've got Jake Myers, who's been able to hit about a 300 as well. Cam Smith has been up and down this season, but he's starting to now give you about a 325 on base. Brandon Rogers has been relatively useless, along Christian Walker, both hitting right around about a 200, but I do think that they're going to be able to get some good production there. And for Seattle, this has been a top 3 team in the American League in terms of runs per game away from home, with Cal Raleigh leading the way, 16 home runs this far this season, a 370 on base. Randy Arozarena, though he doesn't hit for a lot of average, he has still been able to give you about a 360 on base. Ode Palanco, 10 home runs in his first 125 at bats. You've been able to have him give you about a 350 in terms of his on base. Dylan Moore, Rowdy Tellez, a combined 15 home runs. These 2 guys as well. So interesting set of circumstances here. I do think that for Emerson Hancock, he's still going to have his, shall we say, struggles in this one, so I did set my total at ending 8.9. I like the over. And with the Astros, we'll lay up to a minus 121 on that money line. 975, 976 on the betting board. It is the New York Yankees on the road against the Colorado Rockies. This was expected to be Chase Dollander getting the start for the Rockies, but right now the betting board reads to be determined against Clark Schmidt of the New York Yankees. Yankees opening up right around about a minus 305 on the money line. If you're looking at that run line price, right now a lot of books are wanting you to lay minus 2.5 runs with them, and if you're looking to lay minus 2.5 runs, you're going to be able to lay at least a minus 150 there. And total on this game, I'm right now seeing one opener of a 12 with that over right around about a minus 120 and the under being even. And I did set my total at a 10.79. The big reason why I did set such a low total, this Rockies team, even at home, is not generating offense. They're only supplying the team with about 4.3 runs per game when they're at home. That's a below average offense, despite the fact that you're at Coors Field. There are just so many guys on the team. They're hitting a 225 or lower now. To the credit of Hunter Goodman, he has been able to supply the team with north of a 275 average, and he's been able to do a nice job of being able to give you some power, especially on the road. He's been the lone guy for the Colorado Rockies on the road that has been able to give you that home run power, but and you just look all around this Colorado Rockies team, and it's just breadth of talent. They went in on Chris Bryant a few seasons ago, and he has not yielded anything whatsoever. Michael Diglia, Ryan McMahon, Adele Amonor, these guys hitting a 210 or lower for Diglia and McMahon. They've both been able to give you 6 home runs apiece, so you've been able to get at the very least a little bit of something there. But man, this is just a lineup that is not getting going, and this is a bullpen for the Colorado Rockies that isn't dead last in the big leagues in terms of ERA, which I guess that's something that you can hang your head up on. Jake Bird along Zach Ognos have both been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. Jimmy Harrigan has been able to give you a few okay innings, and you've been able to get a little bit more out of the likes of a Juan Mejia and Scott Alexander, but yeah, still a very rough bullpen to say the least. And for the New York Yankees, you've got Luke Weaver, who's done a nice job of being able to mix and match in that bullpen with a sub-1 ERA. You've had Fernando Cruz be able to supply a sub-3 ERA as well. Mark Leiter Jr., don't know how long-lasting it's going to be, but he's been able to give you some good innings as well. And for Clark Schmidt, hey, started out the season on the injured list. He's been able to make 5 starts, posting up a 4.41 ERA. That fielding independent is a little bit better than that because he's getting about 8.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. His home runs per 9 rate is in that neighborhood about a 1.3, but with the New York Yankees, they should be able to chase whoever gets the start, whether that be Chase Dollander or Tanner Gordon. He might be getting the start as well. He's been able to give you a 5.88 ERA this season, and last year got completely lit up. Either of those guys are complete fades. So now at elevation, he has to face off against Aaron Judge, who's giving you a 46 on base and 16 home runs, but it's not just him. Trent Grisham, 12 home runs, 365 on base. You've had Ben Rice be able to give you 10 home runs, 340 with regards to that on base. Anthony Volpe has been up, down, all around, but now you've got Cody Bellinger, who's been able to give you north of a 325 on base. Paul Goldschmidt doesn't necessarily hit for a lot of power these days, but he's still give you about a 390 in terms of the on base as well. This is a Yankees team that they deserve to be sizable favorites. I set them on the money line at a minus 322. I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 205 on that run line, and on the set, I do like the under 977, 978 on the betting board. The Miami Marlins are on the road against the LA Angels. As you say Kikuchi, I say he's starting for the Angels, and Sandy Alcantara is on the bum for Miami. Miami does find themselves as plus 122 to plus 130 underdogs. Meanwhile, minus 145 is that number on Los Angeles. 8.5 is the total. Under is minus 120, and the over is even. And for Kikuchi and company, I did set the Angels at a minus 164 on the money line. It's a guy in Yusei Kikuchi who has been giving up the walks this season, north of 4 walks per 9 innings, but he gets to face off against a Miami Marlins team that really doesn't do a great job of hitting the deep ball. Matt Burvis, 7 home runs this season. Kyle Sowers, who is great, north of a 360 on base. He's supplying the team with 10 home runs this far this season. Augustin Ramirez is up to 5 home runs as well. He's been able to give you a little bit of production, but you've got a lot of guys that they just don't necessarily hit the deep ball. Xavier Edwards, he's been able to hit north of 250, and he was able to hit for a cycle last season, but he's not a guy that's going to be able to draw the ball out. Eric Wagaman and company have just not been able to give you a ton in terms of that lineup as well. And Jesus Sanchez has been hitting below a 235 as well, with Dave Myers currently on the injured list. That means that Kikuchi, guy with a 350 ERA, 441 fielding independence, still should be able to give you a relatively good start despite the fact that he's only getting 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. And I want to know what this imposter of Sandy Alcantara has done with the real Sandy Alcantara. 7.99 ERA for Alcantara. He's given up 5 walks per 9 innings. When he was winning the Cy Young Award a few seasons ago, it was all because he was a very rock-solid pitcher in terms of not putting guys on very cheaply. He was able to go deep into starts because he did a good job of just being able to control his pitch count. He's doing anything but that this season. 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he is giving up 1.5 home runs per 9 innings as well. He's backed up by a bullpen that is in the bottom 6 in the big leagues in terms of ERA, and both of these bullpens are two of the worst they're going to find in all baseballs. For the Miami Marlins, you just have not been able to get much outside of Anthony Bender, who's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, but when it comes to Anthony Veziano, he's been relatively rough. George Soriano has not been able to give you good innings, and Lake Picard, the fact that he is giving you north of a 4 ERA, that's pretty awful as well. And for the LA Angels, they've all of a sudden been able to do a really good job in terms of being able to mix and match these last few days in the bullpen. They're still right there in the dead last position in terms of bullpen ERAs right now. The lone guy in this bullpen that has been able to supply you with a sub-5 ERA thus far this season has been Ryan Zephyrion, aside from Sean Anderson, who has been just out there for like 3-4 appearances. So such a small sample size that's not even funny, but I've been able to get a lot of production in terms of the lineup for this team, in terms of being able to hit the deep ball. Taylor Ward up to 14 home runs this season. He's hitting at 225 now. I recognize that's not amazing, but at the very least, he's starting to give you a little bit of something. Logan O'Hoppe, 14 home runs. He's hitting at 275. This is very much an all-or-nothing team that is in the bottom 6 in the big leagues with regards to their overall batting average, but you've been able to get Zach Neto going, giving you nearly a 300 average. He's been able to supply the team with 8 home runs. Neymar of Luis Renifo, hitting at 221 is relatively unacceptable, but they should be able to get to a Miami Marlins bullpen that's relatively rough, and Sandy Alcantara just has not been its normal self. So I did set my total here at a 8.6. I like the over, and I'm going to be willing to lay the Angels actually on the run line. I was willing to take a plus 118 or higher right now with that run line price. You're going to be able to catch that more around about a plus 140, and wrap things up with 979, 980 on the betting board. The Athletics are playing us the Philadelphia Phillies as Zach Whelan and Dylan Wheeler goes for the Phils. It's old undecided on the bump for the Athletics right now. With the places that have this on the board, the Phillies are about minus 175 to minus 180 favorites, between plus 150 to plus 160 of that number on the Athletics, and total on this game, you're going to be getting it at a 9.5, under is minus 120, and the over is even. Would be a rare circumstance where I'd be willing to take a shot on the under in this spot. I did set my total at a 9.3, and I do think that Zach Wheeler should be a nice, sizable favorite. If you're looking at his run line price, right now, if you're looking to lay run F with the Philadelphia Phillies, that's a minus 110, and I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 110, not a hair more. As for Zach Wheeler, he's been able to give you a sub 335 ERA. I recognize that for Wheeler, he always has some relatively rough starts to the season, then he picks it up as the season goes along. It always feels like his first month of the season is a little bit of trial by error, but even this year, he was very good coming out of the gates. 11.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. His fielding dependence more around a 286, and this guy's coming in having given up 0 runs in his last 2 starts and just 4 runs across his last 4, being able to get 6+ strikeouts each out of his last 5 starts, and this was expected to be Jeffrey Springs, according to all that I'm seeing on the grapevine for the Athletics. And for Jeffrey Springs, he has been supplying north of a 4.5 ERA, has been much better on the road than he has been at home thus far this season, giving up north of a home run and a half per 9 innings. And I do think that the Philadelphia Phillies are going to do a great job of getting to he, along with a bullpen that is in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of ERA, as you've got a bullpen that involves some of these guys that just have not been able to give you good innings, like a Michael Otans, since coming off the injured list, has been very awful. Anel Perdomo, TJ McFarland, Mitch Spence, all supplying north of a 4.50 ERA. Now, Justin Sterner has been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. He's been relatively rock solid, and for the Athletics, you've got a pair of guys who've been able to give you 10 plus home runs this far this season, as you've gotten that Tyler Soderstrom along with Brent Rooker. Now, for Soderstrom, he's been stuck on 9 or 10 home runs for essentially the last month or so, but you've got Jacob Wilson, who's currently hitting north of a 340 for the team. Miguel Andujar being on the injured list has been a little bit rough, and you could use a bit more of JJ Bleday. He's hitting right around about a 200, but Nick Kurtz, after a few, shall we say, weeks at the big league level, he's now been able to give you a little bit more of something. He had a multi-home run game in the previous series against the Angels. You've got a guy that is able to do a nice job of finding way on base, and Luis Urias, 6 home runs in his first 110 or so at bats, hitting about a 270 as well. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, this is also a very less than trustworthy bullpen of theirs as well. Matt Strom was utilized in their game yesterday, and for this entire Philadelphia Phillies team, they have to adjust from going to elevation and now coming back downward, so that's a little bit of an awkward transition for them. And Kyle Schwarber, he has been really the home run power for the team. 17 home runs, 396 on base. You've got Bryce Harper's up to 8 home runs this season, but nobody else has north of 5 bombs. JT Reed, Mitchell, Max Kepler, both have 5 home runs, both hitting at 240 or less. But Trey Turner, even though he's only been able to slug out 3 home runs this season, he's hitting at 300. You've had Nick Castellanos hit about a 280 for this squad, and you've been able to have quite a few guys like Yohan Ross and company mix and match at the bottom of the lineup. So with the Philadelphia Phillies. As long as I'm able to get a 110 or better on that run line, I'm willing to take a shot there, and I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the under. I set my total at 9.3, and that'll wrap things up for the Friday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. A big thanks to John Bollman, who does great work with Baseball with Bollman, who joined me in the last segment. If you'd like to hear from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at GUNet_81. Keep in mind, Larry CM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire on whatever you'd like to on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season on this podcast, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.